Welcome, fabricators. All right, we have Fabric SQL Database. Now we need to use Fabric SQL Database. Let's talk about how we get some on-prem data into Microsoft Fabric SQL Database today on Tales from the Field.
Good day, wake up. Today's gonna be a good day. Wake up. Today's gonna be a good day. Wake up. Today's gonna be a good day. Wake up.
We've got something new with Fabric SQL Database, but just because it's new doesn't mean it's any different than the Azure SQL that we've worked with in the past. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take on-prem data from our SQL 2022 instance, and we're going to use a Power BI data gateway to take this all the way up into our Fabric SQL database using data pipelines. This is your first time finding your way over to Tales from the Field. Give us a like and give us a subscribe. We drop content on Mondays, Tuesdays, or Wednesdays, and we are covering Fabric SQL Database. Let's go ahead and show you that great content. All right, so I'm going to start off in my Fabric instance, and specifically, I'm looking at the database's experience. But before I do that, we need to enable this. So let's go ahead and let's go to the little gear icon. If you're not an administrator, you're going to need your Fabric Tenant admin to do this. And let's make sure that we've got SQL Databases, the preview, enabled. You can see it's currently disabled. I'm going to enable this, click apply. This could take up to 15 minutes before you see this, so keep that in mind. Now, once I do that, once I select apply, and I'm doing this for my entire organization, you may want to narrow this to a specific security group. I can begin working with this, so keep those things in mind. Now, I'm going to go over to my TFTF dev workspace. I'm going to say, let's get a new item. I'm going to type in here. I don't even need to say SQL. I just need to say SQ, and bam, there's my SQL databases in preview. So I'm going to go over, I'm going to name this exactly what it is, AdventureWorks 2022. We're going to take our AdventureWorks database from on-prem. We're going to migrate this up into our Fabric SQL database. So we've got the database created. Now I need to create my gateway. Now I've covered this in a bunch of different videos, so I'm going to fast forward through this as much as possible. But in case this is your first time, we're going to download the standard mode. Then we're going to install the gateway exe. You're going to want to do this in a virtual machine. I don't have a virtual machine. I just have my desktop. So that's what I'm using. So I'm going to go ahead and accept this. You can see it's going to C. You may want this to install to a different drive. Anyway, fast forwarding through this, this will take a little while to do, and then we're going to put our email address in that is going to be utilizing our tenant, and it's going to be the pathway we're going to use. So we're going to then name the on-premise gateway Brad SQL 2022. So that way I know exactly what it is. I'm going to put in my recovery key, click configure, and I see that I have this good to go. Now let's go ahead and let's go back to our Fabric workspace. And now we're not going to the admin portal. We're going to manage connections and gateways. Now, if I go to my on-premise gateways, I can see there's Brad SQL 2022, exactly what we just set up. Part of that registration process was it creating that on-premise data gateway for us. I'm going to come into connections, create a new one. I'm going to select that Brad SQL 2022 on data gateway. I'm going to name this on-prem SQL 2022 and select SQL Server. Now, it's my Avengers Tower, because why wouldn't I name my desktop that, right? My database is AdventureWorks 2022, and I'm going to use Windows authentication, kind of keep it a little more secure. Now, you could use a service principal for this as you're doing it on-prem. This is where you would put that info in. Now, I've got this connection created, and I'm going to go over to my AdventureWorks database again, and now I need to get the data. So let's hop over to SSMS, where I've got a T-SQL query to be able to dynamically get me the schema and table from my objects residing on my on-prem instance. I'm going to go ahead and run this, and you're going to see I'm only going to get 2 columns back, schema and table name. And I'm going to use this in my data pipeline. So let's go create a data pipeline. I'm going to call this AW 2022 forklift, because we're going to forklift all this data up for us to begin working with it. Now, I'm going to copy the data wizard. I'm going to cancel the copy wizard because it's the first thing that shows up, and I'm going to get a lookup task. I'm going to name this exactly what it is, get base tables. So that's what we're doing. I'm going to then go to our settings. I'm going to say, let's go to more, and I'm going to connect to my SQL Server instance. Now, it was already there, and you'll see as I fill this out, it auto finds it, but I could grab it from a list. If you don't find it in a list, we can create it here. I'm going to say Avengers Tower, AdventureWorks 2022. It finds my connection. Now here's the big thing that's important. I pick query and I paste in the query that I've got because I'm needing those schema names and those table names dynamically. I validate that my data came through. I uncheck the first row only because remember, we get an error if we leave that checked. And now I'm going to create a for each statement. So let's go and name the for each something very simple, loop tables. That's what we're doing, right? And I'm going to go to add dynamic contents, and I'm going to get my base tables activity. And remember, I just need to add dot value to the output. Click OK. We're good to go. Now I can make my copy activity. In my copy activity, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to make this something simple, what it is, on-prem to Fab SQL, hashtag Fab SQL. And then I'm going to go on to my on-prem SQL 2022 and SQL Server. I'm going to go ahead and select that, test it, validate it looks good. And then I'm going to change this to enter manually. Now we're going to specify the schema. I'm going to say loop tables, and it's going to give me the item. And I'm just going to say dot value, or say dot schema, because that's what I named it in my query, right? Dot schema, not dot value this time, dot schema. And then I'm going to come over to the same thing for tables, but I'm naming it dot table because that's exactly what the name was. I click OK. Now I go to the destination. I've already got it in here, but I'm going to go to more because I want you to see in our One Lake Hub, boom, there's my AdventureWorks 2022. And I just need to select that. Now, let's say I wanted to create a connector and I didn't use the One Lake Hub. What would I do? Azure SQL Database, because it's Azure SQL Database in Microsoft Fabric. So to do the schema, I'm just going to do item.schema. And then I'm going to dynamically auto-create the tables. I'm going to populate the table name using item.table. So we're going to read from a table. We're going to write to a table. We're going to keep the names exactly the same. Now I've got this good to go. Let's go ahead and run it. I'm going to fast forward through this. This took a little over 2 minutes to be able to run, but it was nice. It was quick. It's very, very fast. But I'm going to let you see all the checkboxes turn green. So you see that this worked the way I wanted it to work. If you get any errors, you'll want to look at the output as to why you got an error, and make sure that you look through that. Everything lights up green. I go through my activities. You can see we've got a couple tables. There we go. Minute 51 seconds, I think, total for the loop, 8 seconds for the base, plus a little queue time, a little over 2 minutes. I now go to my Fabric SQL Database. I refresh, boom, I can see there's all my schemas. That's a little bit of Fabric magic, right? And now I can just click on these individual tables and I can get a preview. So I get the top 1,000 rows, but I can click on these different tables for each schema. I can see that they've populated. I can see that my data is in place. And I'm going to do this for every single schema because I'm just going to pick tables at random. We looked at employee department, contact type, product description. Now let's go ahead and get shipping methods. And then let's go into sales and let's get something that has some data in it like sales order header, sales order detail. There we go. Sales order detail. Great one. I see all my data is there. Now I don't just have my database. I've got a mirror. So let's go check on that. I'm going to go over to monitor replication. I'm going to validate that my data is coming through. I can see the different rows that I've got. The schema is in place for all of these tables. Some of the rows are not yet there, but it's replicating very, very fast. There we go. We have gone from on-prem data into data in our Fabric SQL Database, hashtag Fab SQL. It's catching on. I heard somebody in a call today say it. I didn't even prompt it. I was like, I didn't even know the person. It just warmed my little heart to know that Fab SQL is catching on. Is it catching on with you? Are you trying this out? Run into any issues? You know where we want to keep this going? Down in the comments. We want to hear from you. Anything that you'd like to see about Fabric SQL, let me know because I'd love to do a video on it. All right. Thank you so much, as always, for joining us on Tales from the Field. Be good to one another.
Set your
Bye, everybody.
aspirations. I got shit to do, the aftermath of preparation. Good food, good mood, blood in circulation.